Hey guys, so I wanted to talk to you about cookies a little bit and give you a brief overview of different types of cookies and some common terms that you will hear or read when we're talking about cookies. So, probably 95% of you guys have made cookies, I'm sure, but there might be some things that maybe you didn't really know what they meant, but you kind of just, winged it or whatever. So I want to talk to you about the different types of cookies. One that a lot of people have made probably are chocolate chip cookies, which happen to be what we call a drop cookie. And that's because basically you're just dropping that dough right onto the pan. That's a dropped cookie. So you're not shaping it or rolling it or anything like that. You're not filling it. That's just a simple cookie. Oatmeal raisin cookies are another type of drop cookie. So those are drop cookies. We have bar cookies. So those are ones that you usually bake in like a 19 or a 9 by 13-inch baking dish or maybe a jelly roll pan, which just looks like a long, big baking sheet, but it has sides that are about an inch high. That's a jelly roll pan. So examples of bar cookies would actually be like brownies. If you guys have ever seen lemon bar cookies, something called blondies, which are basically they're just like chocolate chip cookies but in a bar form. Another type of cookie would be rolled cookies. So those are the kind of cookies that you guys see around Christmas time. Those are the ones that are rolled out, with a rolling pin, hence the name rolled cookie. And then you cut them with a cookie cutter. So you're making shapes. Okay, so those are rolled cookies. Another type of cookie is what we call a refrigerator cookie. So these types of cookies are usually rolled up when they're in dough, and then you stick them in the fridge, and it's kind of like in a log shape. And then in order to bake them, you just slice them up. Okay, so you guys have probably seen pinwheel cookies before, and those are the ones that have like the swirls inside of them. If you haven't, but you've gone to the store and in the refrigerated section, you bought that little like log of cookie dough where you slice it up and then there's, like different pictures on the inside. That's another example of a refrigerator cookie. Another cookie is a shaped cookie. So these are ones that you put them in a press and then the dough squeezes out and they all have a certain shape to them. They look a certain way. And usually these cookies tend to be like crispy type of cookies, like a shortbread type of cookie. Another type of cookies, no bake, which are, ones that you cook on the stove usually. You cook some kind of mixture on the stove and then you don't put them in the oven. Okay. So those are the basic types. Oh, one more, a sandwich cookie. So like basically, like think about Oreos, those are sandwich cookies. Another type of sandwich cookie would be like the Little Debbie's oatmeal cream pies, which is one that we usually make in class together. And I will give you guys the recipe for that. So a couple of terms that I want to talk to you guys about with cookies is the first one is creaming. And this is a really important word in the baking world. What creaming is you take your sugar, could be white sugar, brown sugar, or a mixture of both, and you mix it with your fat, which would be like butter, or it might be shortening, or it might be margarine. Okay. The reason why we cream sugar and fat together is to add air into our cookies and make them fluffier and lighter. You don't have to do this step. If you like chewy, dense cookies, then you probably don't want to cream your fat and your sugar. But if you want it light and airy, you probably do want to cream your fat and your sugar together and add air so that you can have like a nice, big, fluffy cookie. Another thing that I want to talk to you guys about is baking powder and baking soda. So I know you guys are probably like, oh my gosh, again. I'm not going to talk to you about how they work in bread, but the way that they work in cookies is that if you want your cookies to spread more, spread out, then you would add baking soda spread. And if you want them to puff up and kind of like get a cakey type of texture, then you would add baking powder. So you could take the same recipe for chocolate chip cookies and instead of having baking soda in it, you could add baking powder and see what that would do to the end product of your cookie. It actually does make them puff up quite a bit when you add baking powder instead of baking soda. Sometimes cookies will have both. It just depends on the cookie that you're making. So another thing you need to be aware of when you're making cookies is if the recipe tells you to refrigerate the dough, it's probably because you have a pretty sticky dough, and if you don't refrigerate it, when you bake the cookies, they're just going to spread out a lot. So in order to keep them from spreading out so much, they tell you to refrigerate it. If you don't have time for that, something you can do is go ahead and shape your cookies into, like use a cookie scoop or just a regular spoon in your drawer and shape them. Put them in the freezer as individual shaped cookies, and then they will get cold faster. All right, so sometimes you need to refrigerate cookies. Sometimes you can make substitutions for things. So say, for example, you have a recipe for oatmeal raisin cookies that you really like, but you hate raisins, and you're going to add chocolate chips instead. You can do that. You could add craisins instead of raisins. You could add M&Ms instead of raisins. If you like coconut, you could put a little bit of coconut in there. There's a lot of things that you can do with cookies to change the way that they are. So the recipes that I'm going to be giving you guys are ones that I have made in school or on my own, and I know that they usually turn out really well. So we're going to do the oatmeal, Little Debbie's oatmeal cream pies, which do have quite a few ingredients, but I've used a couple different recipes, and this is the best one that I've ever found for those. I have chocolate chip cookies that I'm going to share a recipe for you guys. And I also have no-bake cookies, and I'll probably be sharing other ones that we've made in class before, but those are the three that we always make. All right, so I'm gonna also have a video on here of making chocolate chip cookies and walking you guys through the process, and you're gonna have to answer some questions about the cookie process. All right, and then real quick, I just want to talk to you guys about ways that you can make your cookies healthier if that's something that you want to do. A good way to cut down on fat in your cookies is to take a little bit of the fat out, whether it's butter or shortening or what have you, and replace it with applesauce. Of course, that might give it a little bit of an apple flavor, but it's not bad. You could also replace it with sour cream or Greek yogurt. So that will change the flavor of your cookie a little bit probably, but not so much that it's noticeable. Just make sure that you still leave a little bit of fat in the cookie, otherwise you're not going to end up with the right texture. Another thing that you can do is say somebody in your family is gluten-free, can't have gluten. You can always buy gluten-free flour from the store. I would not substitute coconut flour or almond flour 1-to-1 for regular flour. And the reason is because that coconut flour or the almond flour is going to need a lot more moisture than regular flour would. So make sure that you look for amounts when you're substituting cookie or flours for one another. Another thing that you can do if somebody can't have eggs is you can make a flax egg, which is just flaxseed meal, 1 tablespoon of flaxseed meal to 1 tablespoon of water. And you let it sit out for about 5 minutes until it's all absorbed in there, and then that's your 1 egg. If you don't like vanilla extract, but you like almond extract, I know this isn't a healthier version, but it is a substitution. You could add almond extract to your cookies instead of vanilla. So there's a lot of things that we can do in our cookies to make them taste how we want them to. So I will be talking to you guys about that later, but this is your overview. So make sure that you go through the unit in the order that I have posted it on Google Classroom, because that will help you guys learn the material easier. Okay, good luck.